I had started this project. I didn't like how it was coming together. I took it back apart, and now we are starting over. The project today is actually going to be just making a pillar candle holder out of some Lenten roses that I recently dried out of my yard. Lenten roses are usually the first thing to pop up in my yard, and I just love them. Whenever they start coming in, they come in when it's still chilly and cold, and they bring a promise of spring to us. I did grab a few of those. I've grabbed them at different times of the year, which I think is interesting because these like this that have more off-white yellowish color, these were actually from right when they bloomed. Now these, I pulled a couple of stems just in the last few days and dried those, and those are such a darker color, that dark green with that red outline. So you can see how these flowers progress as spring goes on. What I didn't like about the first project was I started applying the Lenten Roses straight to the jar as it is. And the front was looking fine, but the back looked terrible. So if you're somebody that you don't get bothered by how the back looks, then it wouldn't matter. But for me, I am just, the back normally needs to look pretty close to however good the front looks. I decided to grab some of this, it's like medical exam paper that they use on tables, and I just get it on Amazon. I've been using it frequently for doing jelly plate prints. So we are going to use that. It's very translucent. You know, you can see my hands through that. And so I think it will add a nice element to this candle without being too overpowering. The first thing we are going to do is I'm going to apply this with my Super Matte Mod Podge. Trying to decide which way is going to work better for me doing this. And I am going to take it right. This one has a lip, which makes it really nice because I can take this right up to the lip. I think that's going to be a little too much to overlap at the bottom. We're going to cut that down just a little bit before we get started. I'm using ModPodge Matte once again, if I haven't said that already. Get us started. Nice even coat. All right, let's just add that right there. And there we go. I'm just going to press that down. Turn it around of whatever way is the most comfortable for you to work. You'll figure that out as you go along, I'm sure. Up and under. Don't want to miss any of that. Now, if you've watched any of my videos, you do know that I do love to work with, number one, dried flowers, and I do like to do pillar holders quite frequently. It's just, I love candles and light and those kinds of things. Now we do want to try to get rid of as many wrinkles as you can as you're doing this. And I'm telling you, as long as I've done this, I've never done one that's completely wrinkle free. So you know what? I think it's just part of this type of craft. So just Don't sweat the small stuff. And that's also the reason we're working in small sections. It gives us a chance to work out what we can. Now you could also use tissue paper. So if you do tissue paper crafts and then you probably have spares of those second and third plies, you could use those for this project. You could use one of your plies to create the same effect. The thing that I like about the medical grade paper a little bit more is that it's more sturdy than tissue, your plies off of your napkins. Those are great if that's what you have, and I'm an advocate of using what you have. Don't go buy something new if you don't have to. If I had not been doing all of this jelly plate printing, I certainly would not have this paper. Now, after we finish this, we are going to let this dry really well. I'm going to let it dry for at least, it's not going to take long for it to dry, but at least probably, 30 minutes, an hour, something like that, before I jump into my next steps. So you can see those little wrinkles. But, on some level, they add a little bit of character, right? Okay. Then, as we come to the edge, one thing that I do like to do is to have a nice clean, let me get this right here before I start this next part. To have a nice clean finish, I do like to fold over my paper and make sure I've got just a good finishing edge. The other thing that you could do for a fun finishing edge, depending on your look, is you could, let me cut this a little bit more. I don't want it to be that long. Is to do just a little rip, a nice little ripped effect would be, a straight rip would be cute as well. So now I hope I did not cut that off too much to create my little finishing edge. I'm having a problem folding this over. Now for that, I am going to put just a little bit of glue along through there, or a little my Mod Podge. Let's just press that down. Okay. Is that going to come over? And it is going to be about perfect, so that's good. I don't like to have a, large overlap right there. I like to have a nice little short one. I think it just looks better. Okay, so let's just keep working out these wrinkles a little bit. Now, whenever I get ready to fold down the inside to do the bottom, I want to start with the flap that's on the inside. So I'm just going to go and we are going to add our glue to get started. Put a little bit in that crease just to make sure you've got that as well. And then just start bending. I'm just going to start bending that over there. And do it again here. I'm going to start adding a little bit to the top of my you could cut this even if you wanted to also. I just usually choose to do my projects this way. So and just keep folding that over. Or maybe I should just... All right, so I'm just going to wet this a little bit. To do this bottom, I started doing it one way, and you know what? My tissue started ripping, so we changed it up. We are going to just... That pulled right off the way I needed it to. And I am just going to take this little bitty bit and fold it over. And then we will just finish that up by making a nice, clean look later. So I'm going to let that dry, and then we will move on to next steps. While I'm waiting for that to dry, one thing that I did was, this is great, but it just seems a little too stark white for me. So I thought it would be nice to add some type of paint element over that. I ran tests with 3 different paints. This one is brushed pearl gold, warm white, and I also did this metallic white. The way that I ran those tests, I took 2 sheets of the same paper that I wrapped around the candle holder, the pillar holder. Then this one, I left it as is, and I applied my 3 different paints to that. For this one, I added a coat of Mod Podge. This coat of Mod Podge was just brushed on, and this coat of Mod Podge was spounced on before I added the color. So I just wanted to see what kind of difference that would make. And I think I'm actually going to go with this gold option. So my next step is going to be to add a coat of Mod Podge over the surface of the medical paper that we had applied. So I'm just going to take my jar, now that it's nice and dry, and I'm going to take a brush, and we are just going to add 1 coat of Mod Podge over this entire surface. I'm going to start at the seam, and that's just so I know I can remember where I started and where to finish. While I'm doing that, I'm just going to make sure that that seam is covered well. And I'm actually going to do this in like X's, like you were painting a wall. Now, if you don't have dried flowers, I actually think you can order those now on Amazon, and you may be able to find them in the craft store. I don't know. But I usually just dry my own, whether it's using my microfluor or it is pressing them between books, which I also enjoy. But if this is not your normal thing, press them between books. Leaves, flowers, whatever. Now we will just set this to the side to dry, and then we will proceed with next steps, which is going to be basically just painting this with a coat of that gold paint before we get started applying our flowers. All right, so now that that has dried, I am just going to take a little of my brushed metal gold. That's probably even too much. It's not going to take a lot. I'm going to add a little bit of water to that just to thin it up a tad bit. And let's see if that's going to be enough. I want this to be more like a wash than a paint. So let's see if we can get that just thinned up just a little bit more. So again, I'm going to start on my seam. And we're just going to go around we're going to add this gold wash. And after I do that, I'm going to add it in a spot, and then I'm just going to pat it off a little bit. I just want the hint of a different color there. All right, so this has dried, and to be perfectly honest, I did have a little mishap right here where my paper ripped pretty bad. The problem that may have caused is when your candle is sitting there flickering, you would have had like this brighter area right here. So in order to correct that, I did take some of my test paper that I was working with, and I just ripped it down and worked on uh, gluing that over the best I could. So that is an option if you make a mistake. The other option you have is I have another little place that it's not nearly as noticeable, but I have a little place right here. And for that place, all I plan to do is to make sure that a flower goes over that section. So you have a couple of options to correct these little mistakes when they happen. And they will happen. I mean, it's just part of the process. So let's move on. And now I'm going to start adding the flowers onto my candle holder. So I've got a little dish here with some peas in it. It's a little trick I learned from Kathy Fillion. So here we go. We are going to start. And actually, I always use this as my back. I always know that that is going to be my back panel. And so I try to start in the center of the front whenever I'm doing these projects. Let's take a look at these little flowers. Now for this one, I am going to try to pull off. When I dried it with this beautiful little leaf behind it. I'm going to remove that leaf. I'm going to try to remove that leaf. Let's see if we're successful. May have to use some scissors to do this. There we go. I got it off. Okay. And I may use that later, so I'm going to set that to the side. But I did not want that as an extra layer to have to worry about as I am putting these flowers down. Now, if you look at the petals, you can see where the petals overlap somewhat. So what I'm going to do first is I am going to go in and add a little Mod Podge between these petals to keep them together so that whenever they are glued to our surface, we know that the flower is stable and ready to go. Let's see if I can get that separated a little bit. We can just get a little glue in between all of these. It is awfully dark in here today. It is a rainy day out there. All right, and I'm just going to smooth that over with my fingers just to make sure that is in place. I'm just going to let that sit there and dry. I'm going to do a few of these that I'm sure that I will be using just to get started. I'm going to grab this one. May have already been done because this was part of that first fiasco that I had. This one's already done. That's good. Is this one done? This one I'm going to remove the back of this leaf off of here. Oh, please, please, please. There we go. All right, so here all we are doing is just laying down our design. And to do that, I am just adding a nice thin coat of my ModPodge matte all over the back of the flower or the front, depending on which side of the flower that you're wanting to use. Sometimes whenever you press flowers, the back can be even more gorgeous than the front. So use whichever side you like. Let's just add this onto here. Press. And I'm just going to use my fingers to press that on, trying to get as much of that flower attached to the surface of the candle as absolutely possible. Just want a really good seal. So let's see, that one would be pretty considering it's kind of a contrast, isn't it? Bring it down just a tad bit and connect those maybe. Is that the front or the back? Oh, that was the back, which is so pretty, but I'm going to use the front just because I don't want to have to work around these middle parts. I would remove those if I was going to use the other side. So just keep that in mind. All right, so that's what we have so far. I think it's absolutely beautiful already. I think it's just gorgeous. Okay, so let's keep going. Now, I am going to save these in case I want to fill in somehow at the end of this project. But now I am actually going to start thinking about this second layer and adding some of these leaves in. I think the leaves are very interesting to look at as far as this plant goes. Let's see. Well, a few of these interesting. They look like little, I don't know, little pineapples maybe. And sometimes, again, one side of the leaf is more interesting than the other. So you can see all of that purple and that purple or purplish red color on the back of these leaves. So I will probably use the back as the front for these just because I love those colors that come out on the back. So as I add this last one thing I want to let you know that you don't see as I'm working through this project is before, between every layer, because on some of these, there's 2 and 3 layers of flowers that have built up. Between each of those layers, let every single one dry. Don't apply your next layer until the layer underneath it is good and dry, okay? Otherwise, you'll find yourself with different issues. So I'm going to set this to the side to let this last layer dry. I'm probably going to leave it alone, for 25-30 minutes and just let it settle in. And then we are going to come back to this. That has dried. And I'm just giving it one more check, just using my fingers very lightly. All right. Now we are going to, I absolutely love the way that's coming out though. Isn't that beautiful? It's so beautiful. I put a coat of this brushed pearl gold on the bottom of this so you can see down on the inside. And I am going to add a coat. I'm going to add a coat of this on the rim as well. So let's just do that real quick. I'm just going to carefully go around here. I think it'll just add a nice finishing touch. I did go ahead and add 2 coats of that gold to the rim, and it has dried. And now what I want to do is, using a spouncer, I'm going to go over this whole thing with at least 2 coats of Mod Podge to seal and protect it. Spring flowers, no matter what it is, whatever pressed projects you have going on, I would love for you to share those with me. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, and let me know in the comments your spring flower of choice. Thanks and have a great day. Bye.